Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever considered how profound ancient wisdom, carried across continents and centuries, utterly transforms itself, taking on vibrant new forms, new meanings? Get ready, because today we're going on a pretty remarkable journey. We're diving deep into a fascinating cultural exploration. We're tracing the ancient Indian sages, the Rishis, and looking at their incredible evolution into the revered Ruesi archetype in Thai lore. We'll uncover not just what changed, but really why it matters.
That's exactly right. And for this deep dive, we've got, well, a rich collection of source material. Everything from detailed biographies of key Indian figures, think Agastya, Narada, Vyasa, to a crucial comparative analysis on the Ruesi archetype over in Thailand. Our mission really is to understand how these incredibly diverse spiritual figures, they each had such unique roles in India, how they found a new, often more unified identity in a completely distinct cultural landscape.
And I think you're going to have some real aha moments as we uncover some surprising facts about how myth, philosophy, and practical spiritual power sort of intertwine across centuries. This isn't just dry history. It feels like a living, breathing story of cultural adaptation that, still resonates today.
It really does. When we look at the Vedic and post-Vedic traditions of India, what immediately strikes you is the sheer spectrum of roles these rishis played. They were anything but a monolithic group. That's the first thing. Each figure wasn't just a sage. They were often foundational pillars of society, spirituality, even cosmic order, making really unique contributions.
It's truly a staggering range. Imagine one person today covering everything from, like composing foundational religious texts to advising kings in warfare, or even being seen as a progenitor of entire lineages. That's huge. What kind of roles did they typically embody?
Well, many were what's called mantrajit, seers of mantras.
Seers, not just writers.
Exactly. They weren't just authors. They were believed to have actually perceived these sacred hymns, the ones that invoke deities and establish cosmic order. Take Engerus, for instance. He's foundational, associated with the discovery of fire, Agni, and revered for Rig-Vedic hymns, particularly those focused on Agni and Soma. His descendants, the Agurasa sages, they carried that ritual knowledge for generations.
Okay. And then you have someone like Vasita, another key figure. He didn't just compose hymns to powerful gods like Agni and Indra, right? He also served as a Rajaguru, a royal preceptor for the legendary Ikavaku dynasty. That's a very direct, practical role in shaping both governance and spiritual life.
Precisely. And beyond these sort of priestly figures, we find rishis who were profound philosophical seekers, codifiers of thought. Bhrigu, for example, in the Taittiriya Upanishad. He isn't just presented as a teacher. He's depicted as a central seeker of ultimate truth, realizing Brahman, the ultimate reality, through intense, successive stages of meditation. It's a journey of deep personal insight.
That's fascinating. So less about the external ritual, maybe, and more about inner discovery. What about someone like Jaimini? His Mimamsa Sutras, they sound pretty complex.
Oh, Jaimini's work is indeed highly technical. He meticulously interpreted Vedic injunctions, the rules, and his focus was really on the power of ritual performance, the yajna. He introduced concepts like apurva.
Apurva.
Yeah, apurva. It's basically the unseen potency generated by rituals, like the subtle karmic force that arises from correctly performed actions, which then leads to future results. It's a very systematic way of looking at how actions shape reality.
Wow, okay, systematic is right. And we can't forget Vyasa, can we?
Yeah.
He seems like more than just a philosopher. He's almost an epic figure himself.
Absolutely. Vyasa is, well, unparalleled, really. He's traditionally credited with composing the Brahma Sutras, these foundational aphoristic texts for Vedanta philosophy, defining the ultimate nature of reality.
Foundational.
But he's also the author, the narrator, and even a character within the Mahabharata.
The world's longest epic.
Exactly. He practically shaped the entire narrative and spiritual landscape of ancient India. It's hard to overstate his influence.
It really sounds like some of these rishis were literally woven into the fabric of the universe itself, not just scholars studying it.
They were, in many traditions. Many were considered cosmic progenitors. Atri, for instance, along with his wife Anasuya, they're said to have given birth to Chandra, the moon deity.
The moon itself?
And Vugu is described as one of the mind-born sons of Brahma, a direct creation, and a progenitor of entire priestly lineages, the Vuguvamsha. So yeah, these aren't just historical figures in the modern sense, they're mythical ancestors, foundational beings.
Right. That brings us to Narada, the divine sage, often shown with his Viya, his instrument. He sounds like the ultimate cosmic messenger.
He really is. Narada traverses all three worlds, heaven, earth, the underworld, as a Divaring, a divine sage. He's known for spreading bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. And he often plays this catalytic role, sometimes even provocative, subtly nudging events to accelerate destiny, like when he inspired Valmiki to compose the Ramayana. He's a master of cosmic communication, you could say.
The catalyst. Interesting. And then there's Sukha, Vyasa's son. He has a very unique quality, doesn't he?
Sukha does. He's portrayed as Jivanmukta, meaning liberated while still alive, right from birth. He embodies this innate transcendental wisdom and detachment, a living example of ultimate freedom, basically. His most famous role is narrating the entire Bhagavata Purat, a profound devotional text to King Parikshit, over just 7 days.
7 days, wow.
Yeah. And his name, Sukha, means parrot, which symbolizes that pure, untainted recitation of divine truth without any personal attachment filtering it.
So we've got cosmic composers, deep philosophers, epic storytellers, living, liberated beings. Quite the range. But some rishis even got involved in, well, martial arts and underwent these incredible personal transformations, like Vishvamitra. Tell us about him.
Vishvamitra. He's a fantastic example of radical transformation, a really compelling figure. He actually started out as a powerful warrior king named Kaushika, a Kshatriya. And then, through immense austerities, intense spiritual practices, tapas, he ascended to the highest status of sage, a Brahmaran. His legend is often marked by conflict, particularly with Vasifa, but ultimately it's a story of overcoming ego and achieving profound spiritual power. He even became a guru to the young Rama and Lakama in the Ramayana, training them not just in divine weaponry, but also in dharmic warfare, the ethics of conflict.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. We've seen these Indian rishis covering this astonishing range of roles, composing sacred hymns, meditating on ultimate truth, delivering divine medicine, inspiring epic battles, being cosmic progenitors. I mean, everything. But what happens when these powerful, incredibly diverse figures cross vast cultural boundaries, when they're reinterpreted in a new land, like Thailand?
This is where the story takes a fascinating turn, a real shift. When these Indian rishis, along with other Indic traditions, started arriving in Southeast Asia, particularly Thailand, through centuries of cultural exchange, what we call Indianization, their individual stories and their very diverse functions began to, well, coalesce, to merge. The Ruesi archetype in Thai lore, known as for Ruesi, often embodies a much more consistent set of themes. It blends Hindu concepts with local Buddhist understandings and also indigenous folk practices. It's a synthesis.
So it sounds like, okay, if the Indian rishis were like a whole spiritual university with departments for everything, then the Thai Ruesi became more focused, almost like, I don't know, spiritual special forces, emphasizing protection, magic, practical guidance for everyday life. Is that fair?
That's a perfect analogy, actually, yes. A predominant role for the Ruesi is definitely that of a protective figure, a guardian. For instance, take Ruesi Ankiras. He's seen as a spiritual descendant of the Indian Angiras, and he's invoked for occult fire. Now, this isn't just ritual fire like in the Vedas. It's a mystical, protective fire used to actively dispel evil spirits, disease, misfortune, and it's particularly potent in Sakyant tattooing for spiritual protection. So you see how a Vedic concept adapted into immediate practical defense.
Right, tangible defense. And it's not just fiery protection, is it? It's also about health and healing.
Exactly. Ruesi Bharadvaja is remembered primarily as a sage of medicine, or Ruesi Feha. He's invoked in rituals specifically for protection against illness and for compassionate healing. This connects directly back to his Indian association with Ayurveda, the science of life.
Makes sense.
Similarly, Ruesi Atri, derived from the Indian Rishi Atri, gets linked to lunar healing and fertility rituals in Thailand. And he's seen as a guardian of natural balance, which beautifully mirrors his fatherhood of the moon god Chandra in the Vedic stories.
Okay, so specific healing roles too. What about general protection, like amulets and things?
Definitely. Ruesi Fruku, who comes from Bugu, is strongly associated with amulets and yantras, those sacred geometric designs. They're used for foresight, for protective magic, and even for discerning destiny. And Ruesi Wasit from Bosiha becomes this protective hermit saint figure, a guardian of ritual power. He's invoked for blessings and protection magic, often seen presiding over Sakyant ceremonies. These Ruesi become very tangible sources of spiritual defense for people.
Okay, so protection is huge. What about the mystical knowledge aspect? Are they still deep philosophical seekers, or does that also transform?
They absolutely are seen as masters of mystical and occult knowledge, yes, but it tends to have a highly practical application. Ruesi possess profound esoteric insights, but it's often channeled. They're masters of incantations, spells, yantras, usually employed for very specific outcomes: protection, luck, influence.
More outcome-oriented.
Often, yes. And they're also deeply associated with astrology and divination, discerning destiny, reading cosmic patterns to offer concrete guidance. Ruesi Furuku, for example, specifically embodies this insight into destiny and foresight.
And are they still teachers? Like their Indian counterparts were often advisors to kings and heroes.
Very much so. That role continues strongly. Ruesi serve as essential teachers and transmitters of wisdom. They provide spiritual and moral guidance, often to kings, heroes, students, just like in the Indian epics. Fra Ruesi Naro, who comes from Narada, really reinforces this Thai view of sages as mediators, go-betweens for humans and the gods. He's still often depicted playing a veet, symbolizing harmony and bringing divine insights down to the earthly realm.
So following that logic, Ruesi Wyas, from Vyasa, would then be venerated as a great teacher, a compiler of divine knowledge.
Precisely. He's seen as tasked with arranging sacred scripture for humanity's benefit. His image influences the whole literary class of hermits in Thailand. And think about Rezi Chayamini from Majamini. Now, in Thailand, he's less emphasized as a technical philosopher dealing with complex ritual theory. Instead, he's remembered more as a master of order and laws. He clarifies how cosmic law manifests is through correct observance, through right action, and this brilliantly harmonizes that Brahmanical idea of action and consequence with the Theravada Buddhist emphasis on karmic cause and effect from intentional actions. It shows a really deep integration into the local belief system.
Wow, that's a fascinating recontextualization. Taking something profoundly philosophical and framing it as practical, ethical guidance. It sounds like at their core, they're also still very much ascetic hermits, embodying spiritual potency gained through practice.
Indeed, that image is central. They embody the ideal of the forest ascetic who gains spiritual power, tapas, and wisdom through rigorous austerity. Rusi Suk, derived from Sukha, is venerated as a perfect model of this hermit life. He embodies unwavering detachment, compassion, and often symbolizes the pure, untainted recitation of Dhamma, the Buddhist teachings.
Like Sukha reciting the Purana, but now maybe reciting Dhamma.
Exactly. And visually, they're almost always depicted in simple ascetic garb, tiger skins, rough cloth signifying humility and forest life, often with fiery auras or holding specific ritual objects, powerfully emphasizing that spiritual power they've cultivated.
Okay, this is where it all seems to come together. We had the Indian traditions acknowledging this broad, almost boundless spectrum of roles. Cosmic priests, philosophers, epic heroes, lawgivers, involved in complex theological debates. How does this really stack up against the Ruesi archetype? And I guess, what does this tell us about wisdom itself and how it adapts?
Well, the core shift is profound, as you say. Thai lore tends to converge these incredibly diverse figures. They melt into a more consistent archetype, the Ruesi. This Ruesi becomes the powerful ascetic hermit, the guardian of mystical knowledge, the benevolent protector, the moral or ritualistic guide. And importantly, this archetype is often harmonized quite seamlessly with Buddhist principles, reflecting the prevailing spiritual needs and the cultural lens of Thailand.
So this isn't just about like translating names or copying stories. It's about actively distilling and reshaping profound spiritual concepts to fit a whole new cultural framework. Can you give us some really clear examples of how this changed the essence of these figures?
Sure. Think about Varadvaja again. His image shifted quite dramatically. From being a Vedic poet priest, and importantly the receiver of Ayurveda in India, to becoming Ruesi Phita, a healer sage fully integrated into a Buddhist cosmology in Thailand. The emphasis moves from the origin of the knowledge to its direct, compassionate application in healing people.
Right, from swords to application. What about Andhras and the fire?
That's another great one. The ritual fire, Agni, so central to the Vedas, transforms in Thai tradition. It becomes this mystical, protective fire used actively in incantations and especially Sakyan.
Wow.
That's a powerful adaptation, isn't it? From an abstract, cosmic ritual element to something directly applied for personal, spiritual protection.
Exactly. Or Vasyaha, a revered Vedic hymnist and philosopher in India. In Thai practice, he becomes primarily a protective hermit saint, a guardian of ritual power. His wisdom gets channeled directly into benevolent, protective energy for the community's benefit. Even Germany's intricate philosophical doctrine about unseen moral causality from ritual action finds this new resonance. It aligns directly with Buddhist principles that intentional actions, satana, produce karmic results, kama. It shows how deep philosophical ideas get reinterpreted through a very strong moral and ethical lens.
It's also fascinating how Shuka's role shifts. You mentioned he's less emphasized as the specific narrator of a text like the Bhagavata in Thailand. That's right. Instead, he becomes the quintessential model of the perfected hermit life itself, embodying that unwavering detachment, that purity, and the pure, untainted oral transmission of truth, which perfectly mirrors the importance placed on Dhamma recitation in Theravada Buddhism, the power of the spoken sacred word.
It's truly like these sages, on their epic journey across the continent, somehow evolved. They became precisely the spiritual guardians and guides that this new culture needed them to be, distilling their vast original wisdom, all those different strands, into a more concentrated form of benevolent power, specifically for practical application in daily life. It's quite incredible what a journey we've taken. From the incredibly diverse intellectual and spiritual landscape of ancient India, just packed with philosophers, epic heroes, cosmic progenitors, the focused, protective, and mystical guardians of Thai lore. The story of the Rishis becoming Ruesi is such a vivid, powerful illustration of cultural adaptation.
It really is. And the enduring appeal of these archetypes, in both their Indian and their Thai forms, it underscores something universal, I think. A universal human need for guidance, for protection, and for profound wisdom, however it's framed. It really challenges us to look beyond rigid, singular definitions of these figures and to appreciate the fluid, living nature of spiritual traditions, how they continuously evolve to serve the unique needs of local cultures and times.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how every culture shapes its heroes, its sages, to reflect its deepest hopes and fears. So as you go about your day, maybe consider this. What ancient wisdom, in whatever form it takes for you, guides your understanding of the world? And how has it been adapted, perhaps even transformed over time to fit your own cultural context or even your own personal journey? Something to think about.